Canada and the United States appear to be drifting apart economically. Drifting apart in the sense that one economy appears to be continuing to grow while the other is faltering. In 1981, Canada's real per capita GDP was about 90% of the United States. But over the next 30 years, that percentage shrunk considerably, and now real GDP per capita in Canada is 70% of the US. And just last week, economic figures put out on both sides of the border showed that the US economy is outperforming the Canadian economy. Joining us now to unpack the divide between the two economies is Brendan Caldwell, director at Caldwell Securities. Thanks for joining us, Brendan.
Thank you, Julie.
Why is there such a disparity between Canadian and US economic figures?
Oh, so many reasons. Different economies that make money in different ways. So much of our economy is resource-based, and so much of the resource sector is anathema, is repellent to our government, that it's meant that we've put a damper on our biggest source of foreign exchange, energy in particular. But it's not just the federal government. Provincial governments at many levels have been reluctant to do what we do best, which is proverbially to be hewers of wood and drawers of water. That is to say, be in the resource business. We have not done as nearly a good a job as capitalizing on the technical expertise that we have. University of Waterloo, as a for example, is one of the leading tech hubs in the entire world, and yet there are not very many global Canadian tech companies. We get to a certain size, and then we don't have either the venture capital or the capital markets to take it to the next level. And then there's the question of taxes. There is something psychological about paying 53% in taxes versus 49%. And as you tick over that 50% mark, it does tend to lead to an exodus of people looking for sunnier tax climes. So I think there's a bunch of reasons. And while it's easy to rail against one thing or the other, I think it's a whole combination.
So, Brendan, why does it appear as though the US is continuing to grow economically while Canada is stalling in relative terms?
Because it's true. That's to start with that part. Because America, being much more a free market economy, has its pros and its cons. The cons is that the disparity of wealth in America is more pronounced. You feel it across the border in upstate New York. And you go from Niagara to New York, it just feels that there is a difference between very rich and very poor. They have greater extremes there. That having been said, that's not the only reason. America does tend to just do what it does, and if that's and that tends to be innovation, and not just innovation. That's wrong. It's the commercialization of innovation. I mean, the telephone may very well have been invented in Brantford, Ontario, but don't tell the Americans that it was popularized, commercialized, and spread all over the world through the auspices of the American commercial system. So there are pros and cons, but what America does best is commercialization of technology. What we do best is initiation of technology and resources, and we just don't get the technology to the next level, and we're not using our resources, natural resources, to their fullest potential.
Okay, so what can Canada do to grow our economy?
Single best thing I think they should do, it won't play politically, but drop the tax rate to just a hair under 50%. That will keep the very rich working and without actually affecting the economy. Now, I know I'm talking my position there. Yes, I know what I just said, but I do think, I do think that we'll be better at keeping Canadians at home. The other is, I think, develop the capital markets. It will be a while before we have the venture capital market that the U.S. has, and we just don't have the depth and the width and the breadth that America has, or just the sheer up amount of money. But we do make it easier for companies to become public, and allow people to vote with their money. I believe that exchanges are by far the most democratic institution that the Western world has ever come up with. They allow for the free expression of capital. If if an entrepreneur has a good idea, you can vote with her with your money. You can actually put money down on her company, and if the entrepreneur does very well, you get to participate along with her. So it is a good system, and I think making capital markets more effective in Canada would be another helpful thing.
Thank you, Brendan. As always, great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Julie. Be well.